Please be advised that this podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is in no way a replacement for legal or medical advice. The opinions contained within are solely those of the interviewers and interviewees and should be received as so. Those seeking help or advice are encouraged to obtain professional legal and medical services.
Check, 1 2 1 2.
Live across the universe.
Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's about that time, y'all.
you are now in the mix.
It's time to wake up, folks. Don't touch that button. You're locked in to Wake Up Live from K.L.P Studios.
Good morning, my peaches. If you're up, that means you're blessed and booked, baby. And if you're still in bed, no judgment. Just remember, rent due don't care about your sleep schedule.
Imagine waking up one morning to find that an entire country's digital nervous system had essentially flatlined. That's exactly what happened when Vodafone's network crashed, affecting over 130,000 people across the UK.
That's such a fascinating way to frame it, and what really strikes me is how this wasn't just a minor glitch. We're talking about one of the UK's largest telecom providers completely vanishing from the digital landscape.
You know what's mind-blowing about this? Vodafone serves more than 18 million customers in the UK, including around 700,000 home broadband users. When their systems went down at 3 p.m., it was like watching a digital blackout in real time.
And the timing couldn't have been worse, right in the middle of a busy workday when businesses and remote workers depend on these connections for literally everything.
Well, here's what I find particularly fascinating. While the newer services like 4G, 5G, and broadband crashed, the basic 2G voice calls and SMS kept working. It's like watching technological evolution play out in reverse right before our eyes.
That's exactly what makes this so interesting. It's almost like seeing the bones of our communication system exposed when all the modern layers get stripped away.
And you know what makes this even more complex? The ripple effects hit other providers like Voxy and Lebara who use Vodafone's infrastructure. It's like, watching dominoes fall across the entire telecommunications landscape.
So what you're saying is this outage exposed just how interconnected and vulnerable our modern networks really are.
Precisely. And let me tell you about some of the real-world impacts. One person had to camp out at a coffee shop just to access Wi-Fi because both their mobile data and home broadband were down. It's like being suddenly transported back to 2005.
Well, that really shows how dependent we've become on these services. And what about that self-employed person who couldn't work because they had both their mobile and broadband with Vodafone? Talk about putting all your eggs in one digital basket.
You know what's really wild? Cloudflare Radar reported that Vodafone had effectively dropped off the internet, with traffic dropping to zero. It's like an entire segment of the digital world just vanished.
That description makes it sound almost apocalyptic, and yet the experts like Daniel Card from BCS pointed out these incidents usually come down to simple technical faults rather than cyber attacks. Guys,
Speaking of communication breakdowns, get this. Customers couldn't even access Vodafone's website or app to check what was happening. It's like trying to call a fire department that's currently on fire.
oh my goodness, that really highlights a crucial vulnerability in crisis communication, doesn't it? When your primary channels of communication rely on the very infrastructure that's failed.
And here's what I find particularly telling about Vodafone's response. Their statement was notably brief, just acknowledging the issue and saying the network was recovering. In today's world of instant communication, don't you think customers expect more?
Well, that's such an interesting point about the evolution of customer expectations. People want real-time updates, detailed explanations, and clear timelines for resolution.
You know what this whole situation reminds me of? It's like when a major power grid fails, suddenly everyone realizes just how much they took that infrastructure for granted. The difference is, we've had decades to develop backup systems for electricity.
That's such a compelling comparison. We treat internet connectivity as essential as electricity now, but our backup systems haven't quite caught up to that reality.
And looking toward the future, this incident raises some serious questions about our increasing dependence on digital infrastructure. As we move toward smart cities and autonomous vehicles, how do we prevent these kinds of outages from having catastrophic effects?
Well, that really puts things in perspective. The stakes just keep getting higher as we become more interconnected.
Let me share something that really struck me about this whole situation. It's not just about the immediate impact. Think about all the missed medical appointments, delayed business deals, and emergency services affected. The ripple effects could last for days or even weeks.
That's such an important point about the cascading effects. It's like pulling one thread and watching an entire fabric unravel.
And you know what this incident might lead to? A serious reassessment of how we build our digital infrastructure. Maybe we need to start thinking about internet access the same way we think about other utilities, with mandatory redundancies and backup systems.
Well, that could really change the game for how telecom companies operate. Imagine if they had to meet the same reliability standards as power companies.
Looking ahead, I think this incident might be a wake-up call for both providers and consumers. We might see more people diversifying their digital connections, keeping backup providers, or maintaining alternative communication methods.
That's really fascinating to think about, like having a digital emergency kit ready for when things go wrong.
Well, as we wrap up this discussion, here's what I think is the biggest takeaway. Our digital infrastructure is simultaneously more robust and more fragile than we imagine. It's not about if these outages will happen, but how prepared we'll be when they do.
That really captures the essence of what we've been discussing, the need to balance our growing digital dependence with practical resilience strategies.
Here's a mind-bending number to consider. At some major companies, it would take the average worker nearly 1,300 years to earn what their CEO makes in just 1 year. And that gap? It's only getting wider.
Those numbers are staggering. What's driving this massive disparity in corporate compensation?
Well, looking at the latest data, CEO pay packages in the S&P 500 jumped almost 10% in 2024, reaching a median of $17.1 million. Meanwhile, the typical worker at these companies saw just a 1.7% bump, bringing their median pay to $85,419.
Though I understand a lot of these CEO packages aren't straight cash, they're heavily tied to company performance, right?
Exactly. Take Rick Smith at Axon. He topped the list with $164.5 million, but almost all of that is in stock awards he can only get if the company hits specific targets by 2030. Companies are increasingly structuring compensation this way.
That's interesting because it means these packages are really bets on future performance rather than guaranteed payouts.
Right? And we're seeing this trend across the board. The median stock award rose 15% last year, while base salaries only went up about 4%. But here's what's fascinating. At places like Carnival Corp, the CEO still makes nearly 1,300 times what their median worker does.
You know what really stands out to me? The growing security spending for these executives. The median security budget jumped from $69,000 to over $94,000 in just 1 year.
That's actually a direct response to some concerning incidents, including the shooting of United Healthcare's CEO. Companies like Centene and Intel have significantly increased their security perks as a result.
Let's talk about the women breaking into these top positions. I noticed some interesting trends there.
Oh yes, we're now seeing 27 women CEOs in the S&P 500, the highest number since 2014. And they're not just present, they're excelling. Their median pay rose 10.7% to $20 million, outpacing their male counterparts, who saw a 9.7% increase to $16.8 million.
Though I understand some experts are cautioning against too much optimism about those numbers.
Exactly right. Christy Glass from Utah State University points out that while we might see a few more names on the list, we're not really moving the needle significantly on overall equity trends. And this comes at a time when many companies are actually scaling back their DEI programs.
So what's the broader economic context for all of this?
Well, these CEOs were navigating some pretty challenging conditions in 2024. Sticky inflation, high interest rates, declining consumer confidence. But they also had some tailwinds. Consumer spending stayed strong, inflation did moderate somewhat, and the job market remained robust.
Plus, the stock market had quite a year, with the S&P 500 up more than 23%.
And corporate profits rose more than 9%. But here's what's particularly interesting. There are some notable outliers in how companies approach compensation. Warren Buffett's package at Berkshire Hathaway was just $405,000, about 5 times what a typical worker there makes.
That's quite a contrast to someone like Tim Cook at Apple, who received $74.6 million, or Ted Sarandos at Netflix with $61.9 million.
And it raises some important questions about sustainability and fairness. Sarah Anderson from the Institute for Policy Studies argues these huge disparities don't just raise ethical concerns. They can actually harm company performance by reducing employee morale and increasing turnover.
That makes me wonder about the long-term implications of these trends.
Well, consider this. The average U.S. worker makes about $65,460 a year, or $92,000 with benefits. While we have seen some increases in worker pay, especially at the lower end of the wage scale, many workers in the world's richest countries still struggle to pay their bills.
So what might change look like in this space?
We're already seeing shifts toward more performance-based metrics and sustainability goals in compensation packages. But the real challenge is finding a balance that rewards effective leadership while maintaining some sense of proportionality with worker pay.
Those are certainly complex issues to navigate.
Indeed, they are. And as we continue to see these compensation packages evolve, it will be fascinating to watch how companies balance shareholder demands, employee equity, and the need to attract top talent. The decisions made today could shape corporate culture for years to come.
Looking forward to seeing how these trends develop in the coming years.
Absolutely. And whether you're looking at it from the perspective of corporate governance, economic equality, or basic fairness, this conversation about executive compensation will remain crucial to understanding the future of work and business in America. Thank you all for joining us today.
Check 1 2 1 2.
Live across the universe.
Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's about that time, y'all.
you are now in the mix.
It's time to wake up, folks. Don't touch that button. You're locked in to Wake Up Live from K.L.P Studios.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.